Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my first of hopefully a series of reviews for the new Transformers Robots in Disguise TV show. This is obviously the 2015 new version of the show, not the one that came out in the 90s, I think. I'm not really sure, I've never seen the original Robots in Disguise show, but yes, you've probably seen, obviously I reviewed the last season of Transformers Prime. I talked about season 1 and 2. But with this new show coming out, I definitely wanted to do it on my channel, and just over the weekend, the first place to show the episodes in English, I think Australia and New Zealand got the first release of the English dub of the show. So yeah, I'm here to review the first 3 episodes of the show: Pilot Part 1, Pilot Part 2, and Trust Exercises. So yeah. This is obviously going to be more of a, since it is the first review of Robots in Disguise, less focused on the specifics of the episodes and rather just an introduction to all the characters as like opening episodes. So, this is a continuation of Transformers Prime, as far as we're aware. I think it basically makes some of the comics non-canon, because in IDW comic, Grimlock was introduced with some of the other Dinobots, but here he is this, obviously green dinosaur guy. So that's different, but for the most part they seem to be going with, this is the aftermath of Transformers Prime continuity, in that Optimus Prime is dead because that's what happened in Predacons Rising, and Bumblebee is considered a hero at this point in time. And we started from there with Bumblebee basically forming his own squad with some new characters. And overall, I liked the 3 episodes I saw. I thought it was a solid start to the series. I think there's potential, definitely, with all of these characters and the kind of what was set up. I'd definitely be a little bit worried just with, I suppose, maybe the general tone of the show and how in-depth they're going to go with any plot or any character development. I think there's something there for most of the key Transformer characters, but I'd be a little bit worried that they seem to be taking a different approach with this show than Transformers Prime, and hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully they don't sacrifice plot and character development just to have a few more bits of humor or anything like that. Just to have some more fight scenes. I want character development because there's definitely stuff here. So obviously Bumblebee's our leader, and Bumblebee in the Transformers fandom is not a character who really has that big of a. People accept him, but they definitely get tired of him being kind of pushed on the fans as, like, after Optimus, it's Bumblebee, he's the big character. And I think going into this show, he was helped so much by what they did with Bumblebee towards the end of Transformers Prime. Giving him the voice back, and that voice being really good, and his character, now that he has a voice, actually being interesting, works, and flowing into this show, it just really makes him an interesting character, because you see that straight away early on the show, Strongarm says that it's an honor to work with you, but I would have thought that after your experiences on Earth, you would have been promoted to a higher position than just like a street cop. What happened there? And the constant referencing of people around him to, like, oh, you were part of Optimus Prime's team for all this time. You must have so much to teach us and stuff like that, and you get all these sort of references, and he seems a bit annoyed by people constantly bringing up Optimus Prime around him, that he doesn't feel like he's good enough maybe to be a teacher on the level of Optimus Prime, doesn't feel good enough to be a Prime potentially, because they basically, I think by the end of Transformers Prime, they were either going down the route of the next Prime is probably going to be Smokescreen or Bumblebee, and Smokescreen right now isn't in this show, but Bumblebee is, and so they seem to be, with making him the leader, maybe going down that road, especially with what they did with Optimus, but I'll talk about Optimus later. So I think there's potential there just with dealing with the issues of Bumblebee basically taking on that Optimus Prime role in this series, having to deal with these younger characters, and him be the veteran as opposed to the character that's going from being just, one of the younger members on the team to being considered, a warrior, and now being a lieutenant. So that's an interesting arc just in between the series that's taken place, and I assume this series will focus on him stepping up as the leader and potentially becoming a Prime at some point. Like, everyone's made the joke of like Bumblebee Prime or Bumblemus Prime or whatever, but I think that would be a really cool move to take with this character if that's the road they're going down, that he eventually becomes a Prime after proving himself over the course of this series. Now, the one thing I would say going against that is that right now the villains don't seem strong enough, and the general kind of conflict going on doesn't seem strong enough to really make it so that Bumblebee being successful on these missions would make him a Prime. But I think basically what they're going for is that like season 1 is kind of just going to be introductory. We're not going to have too much crazy plot or too much character development. We're going to primarily focus on introducing characters, setting up what the series is going to be like, and then maybe a season 2 starts to bring the real plot and stuff into play. And I'm happy to wait for that because there's definitely some interesting characters here. And a character who really stood out to me in these opening 3 episodes was Strongarm, our female character, and I think she's awesome. She's definitely one of my favourites just after these 3 episodes. I like that she is the cop character, that while, you know, RC was the established warrior, she is the cop character, but she's also the cadet of the group, in that, yes, she has more experience than, say, Sideswipe, but she's not as experienced as Bumblebee, and you can see how naive she is at certain points. She sticks so close to the rules that she can't really think for herself, and so she's kind of shocked when she sees Bumblebee breaking the rules a little bit, and Sideswipe doing that, and she's kind of like bringing Ultra Magnus style, bringing up all these lists and stuff like that. And then add to that she seems to have this huge reverence for Optimus Prime's team and everyone that was on it, and that working alongside Bumblebee, who was like Optimus's right-hand man, is such an honor for her, and she wants Bumblebee to train her in the same manner that Optimus trained him. But obviously because of Bumblebee's issues with potentially being the leader or not living up to Optimus, that's not working out. And so that's interesting. Her kind of friendship with Sideswipe starts in the 3rd episode because they eventually kind of find some trust for each other, they help each other out. So that was interesting, and I just see a lot of potential for this character basically being the Bumblebee. How do I say this? Bumblebee in Prime is basically Strongarm in Robots in Disguise, in the sense of it's a character who has a bit of experience. She's not the most inexperienced character on the team, but the series is going to follow her probably jumping from being the cadet to being in a position where she is a more respected character and stuff like that. So I'm excited for her. Sideswipe, I think, is also interesting. Definitely not fully sold on the character just yet, because he seems to be the character that's the one that's bonding the most with the humans right now, him and Russell. But I think there's a story there that they're going to tell at some point about why Sideswipe is acting the way he is. That he seems to have Bumblebee seems to have met Sideswipe before and feels a little bit sorry for him about something, which is why he kind of brushes off Strongarm's, you know, stuff about the rules when they find him in like the 1st episode. So there's I think there's a story to be told there about why he is the way he is, in terms of not wanting to really be involved in all of this stuff, just wanting to break all of the rules, be a little bit more free, and you know, I think his design is pretty cool. Like, it's been a while since we've had a Sideswipe in like a show for Transformers, so that's interesting. And overall, you know, they're definitely going to, I suppose, play with him more in the sense of will he ever be a team player? He seems to kind of be going off on his own a bit, but at the same time you see a little bit of that heart coming into it when he's going back to save Strongarm, but still kind of wanting to be a kind of lone wolf almost. So potentially seeing him become a team player will be interesting over the course of the series. Grimlock, he's the character you just don't really know the most about in this opening. Again, there's a story to be told about why does he start off as a Decepticon, why was he captured in the first place when he doesn't seem too bad. Like when he breaks out, yeah, he seems like a brawler character, and once he's on the team after like the first 2 episodes, he basically all he talks about is punching things and getting into fights, and seems to be acting like a team player. And that Bumblebee takes Grimlock with him ahead of the other two because they don't seem to trust each other. But we don't. There's not much to him beyond that. Just he can fight. He's strong. He's a Dinobot. The most interesting thing about him is the Decepticon past, why he was in one of those pods on this ship in the first place. And I think that, plus Sideswipe's backstory, need to be explored, and I'd really like them to actually really go for some backstory episodes. Transformers Prime, from what I remember, had a couple of them. I think RC had about 1 or 2 backstory episodes, but they didn't focus on it too much. They primarily did backstories through kind of almost comic panels that they kind of cut to. I'd almost like to see a couple of episodes of flashback at some point in the series to address some of this stuff. So that's the main Autobot cast. You know, I like Grimlock, but of all of the Autobots, he's the one who's convinced me the least just yet. He works because the group needed some strength in their team, because you can see in most of the fights that take place in these first 3 episodes that their blasters are fairly small, their equipment doesn't seem to work too well, and while Bumblebee seems very solid in the fights, isn't just getting destroyed by anyone, he doesn't seem to have the power to really fight back. Now, obviously, his toy comes with the kind of Star Saber sword. I don't really know what they're calling it. So it would be really cool to see Bumblebee maybe possibly get that sword at some point in the series. Now, Optimus is the last Autobot really to cover. We do see him a little bit. Obviously, he appears in reflections to Bumblebee only. The others can't see him until he kind of manifests physically at some point in the fight. But up until then, he's guiding Bumblebee to a space bridge to get him to Earth to potentially deal with this thing that Optimus knew was going to happen, the crash, Fixit's ship crashing on Earth. And that's interesting why Optimus specifically pointed to Bumblebee over Smokescreen, and I think this is going to be something that they almost like have to introduce Smokescreen into the series. Now, there is a thing, obviously, that right now, in terms of Autobots, Decepticons, Megatron is off. Like, he wasn't killed at the end of Prime. He just kind of, after Optimus like sacrificed himself and stuff like that, after he wasn't controlled by Unicron anymore, he just flew off. He basically disbanded the Decepticons effectively and flew off. He's still out there somewhere. But who's the Prime right now? Who's in charge of the Autobots? I would assume it's probably Magnus, who's the acting Prime right now. Maybe they're not going to call him Prime, but he's the guy in charge of the Autobots right now while Optimus isn't around. I'd be shocked, but also really interested if they just revealed, like someone said, like, yeah, Smokescreen's the Prime now, or something like that. RC is the Prime. But I assume we'll have references like that as we go on. But yeah, Optimus himself, it's definitely interesting why he's specifically targeting Bumblebee, why he's so eager for Bumblebee to form this team. Okay, so the final thing to mention with Optimus is obviously that he does actually manifest in physical form at a point during these episodes to basically save the team from Underbite. And obviously he throws them off the cliff, just announces that they're a team now, they have to stay here, save Earth from these Decepticons and stuff like that. And then reveals that he doesn't really know kind of what he is right now, what his powers are, what he can do, what he's meant to be, or anything like that, and that he basically doesn't know how he appeared in physical form. So there's some mysteries around Optimus which I like. They haven't set up like straight away that like, oh, he's just back for good right now, which when he first like appeared, I was just like, oh, they haven't just ruined Bumblebee's day by having Optimus come right back. I assume he's gonna appear at some key moments, help Bumblebee, help the team at points, and then maybe down the line he may come back fully or something like that. But I almost kind of don't want to see him come back full time on the show, just because I think there's so much potential with doing the whole Bumblebee becomes the leader bit with him. But yeah, overall, I liked Optimus's use in the episode. So the human characters, they're human characters. They're never the focus or the most interesting parts about the show. But we get Russell and his father, Denny, and they live on this place away from the main city. So they basically live in a scrapyard. And effectively, what we get here is that these are, Mark Wahlberg and Nicola Peltz's characters from Transformers 4: Age of Extinction, just done in a more kid cartoon focused style. In that Mark Wahlberg's character, I can't remember the names from the actual movie, but was the inventor, scrap collector guy, and then his daughter, in this case son, was the character who had to go live with the father, but doesn't really like the way the father is so much. But the father's very protective and stuff like that. So that was something I noticed straight away, the obvious comparisons between Age of Extinction and the human characters here. For what they are fine. Like, we don't get much on Denny. We don't even get much on Russell. He's just the human character there. He's going to be Sideswipe's buddy, I assume, for the whole series. And now, basically, the scrapyard being away from the city gives the Autobots a command base away from most humans, and means they're really realistically only going to interact with a couple. Now, I'm arguably more interested in this show in terms of the human cast for what they decide to do with the human cast from the previous series. In, obviously, Jack, Milo, and that's her name, isn't it? Milo? I'm not sure. I have Cora so much on my brain that I'm just like, Milo. I know it's Milo, I think, and Raph. So I don't know why I'm overthinking her name, but I think that's it. What they do with the three of them, if Agent Fowler's still there, or Jack's mother June, is she dating Agent Fowler and stuff like that? How much time has actually passed? There's a lot of questions to ask, definitely, with the human cast, but there's not really a massive amount to say about the humans. At the very least, they weren't like annoying in the sense of that can sometimes be the case in these Transformers shows. They worked for what they needed to do, but weren't massively interesting. So we'll move on to the Decepticons. I suppose Autobot, I forgot to talk about Fixit because, well, he is the most forgettable Autobot. The whole his wires have been scrambled or something like that, and he at times says words over and over again until he finally gets it right. That wore out just in these 3 episodes, and they're just going to use that over and over again. But it really is something that should stop straight away. Someone needs to fix it fast. A lot of alliteration there, but that's what needs to happen. Because that's just so annoying, and all of the characters pointed out as well that he's the character who talks the most. He's a chatterbox, and he's also the character who has the speech problem. And Transformers speech problems never really works. Obviously, Bumblebee not having a voice didn't work, and all of this other sort of stuff. Soundwave not really having a voice didn't work so much, just because it didn't go anywhere really with it. And this is just the same, even though it's more comedic and stuff like that. It still doesn't work. Fixit himself. It's interesting that he's a minicon, setting that up straight away that there are minicons. We haven't seen what he transforms into, or if he even can transform. But again, how did Fixit get to be the commander, the guy in charge of this ship of really dangerous Decepticons? That's interesting. So some backstory set up to why the ship crashes would be nice to know. Did someone cause the ship to crash, or what? But Fixit's fine. So then we move into the Decepticon cast. Now, by all accounts, these characters are not going to be main characters, from what I hear. They will return at certain points, but for the most part, they're not there every week to fight and really become characters in the sense of like give the villains character arcs too. Steeljaw seems to be the only character in the series that they're really going down that road with in terms of making a kind of main character out of in that sense. He was definitely the character of the Decepticons who wasn't defined just by a few little traits, that rather he was the one who was the smooth talker of the group, while Underbite was the kind of metal eating Texan kind of out of control type thing. They give him the southern accent and stuff like that. And what was his name? Hammer. I can't remember what the shark's name was. It was Hammer something. He was the guy who just hated everything on land and kind of had an Australian accent, New Zealand or whatever. They were definitely a little bit one note, but fun for what they were in the one episode. So I can understand why they don't want to just keep them around Steeljaw the whole time and just have like him be really interesting with his like attempts to kind of manipulate Strongarm, as we saw in these episodes, the smooth talking aspect, and how he talks about only wanting freedom and stuff like that, not wanting to do violent things, but then he ends up kind of planning a trap for the hero characters. So he's interesting. Definitely, like, I wasn't too excited for him going into the show because the toy, like, basically of Wave 1 of Robots in Disguise Warriors, he's the only one I didn't get because the toy doesn't look very good to me. I got the other three. And so I was a little bit worried about who he was. Thankfully, the character seems actually pretty interesting, a good kind of match in terms of, obviously, like, if it was Bumblebee's the leader of the Autobots, Megatron's the leader of the Decepticons, it wouldn't really work because one leader is on a whole other level than the other. But this time round, like, you have Steeljaw, who is, to us as fans, a new Decepticon leader versus Bumblebee, who's a new leader of this group. So that's an interesting setup for where exactly they go with that. Will he really take on a leadership role, or will Steeljaw continue to be kind of lone wolf character? No pun intended, because he basically has wolf-like features in robot mode. So there's that. So the Decepticons are interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they do with them over the rest of the season. Like, will they have some of the characters escape at points and have them come back again as a threat, or will they start to introduce, I suppose, more characters to the main cast of Decepticons? Maybe some names that we know a little bit better. Maybe some references from Prime. Like, I think Arachnid is still out there. I think last we saw she was on the moon or something like that with all the vampires and stuff like that. The vampire, what do they call them? Like something Terracons, I think it was. They called them. So she's up there as the queen of them or something like that. She'd be a cool villain, and it'd be a cool callback to the original kind of series of this universe. But definitely some more well-known names in the Decepticons probably needed as the series goes on. What else is there to talk about? I suppose more the plot of the episodes, kind of the last thing I need to talk about. First two episodes were very standard, introductory stuff, getting introduced to who our main cast is, that the main goal of the series is to capture all of the escaped Decepticon prisoners and just secure Earth and protect it. It seems like a fairly standard plot setup, and a plot setup, to me, to be more episodic rather than a series with a lot of continuity. Like, the setup right now seems to be like that. We're going to get introduced to like a new Decepticon villain in like every single episode this season, and then maybe they'll do something big in like the last couple of episodes to change things up a little bit. I would prefer it to be more story driven and character driven, but maybe that will come into play later on. For what it is, though, I'm enjoying the show. I think the animation is, for the most part, pretty good. I really like the animation. It gets a little bit kind of, what's the word, maybe choppy in some of the really intense action scenes. Like, it almost looks like it's slowing down. It could just be the way I watch the episodes, the kind of uploads or whatever, but for what it was, I was really impressed with the animation. The character models are really characterful. There's a lot of expression on those faces and just in the movements. So that was very impressive. And overall, I think the series has a lot of potential going forward. As I said, most of the Autobot cast, I think, has something unique to them that's set up as a plot point going forward, whether it be their backstory or an obvious path that they've already set up for the characters going forward. But I thought that this was a good debut of a new show, and I hope it gets better as it goes on. I'll definitely continue to review it as it comes out. So yeah, I'm going to kind of be in tune with more with the, I suppose, Australia, New Zealand airings. And basically, in terms of reviews, I'm going to be watching these as soon as they're available to watch in English. So if you want to follow me along, you're going to have to do the same. So definitely in the comments, anyone, if you've seen the first 3 episodes, let me know what your thoughts were on the series yourself. I'm going to end the video now, so thanks for watching this, and bye.